Hello, my friends, former colleagues, LinkedIn contacts, and perhaps future customers. I like to share a story about the appreciation of mining then and now that is based on experiences from 3 days of my summer vacation in and around Aachen in Germany. Here you can see the Google Maps view of Aachen in the bottom left, where I still have many friends, and the places that we visited on these 3 days. On June 26th, we visited the lignite coal mine in Hambach. Actually, Hambach is not there anymore. That was in the hole. Now the hole is big enough to put Aachen inside. Then on June 27th, we visited the Energeticon, which is a beautiful energy experience museum in Alsdorf. And then finally on June 28th, we went to the spa in Aachen. Even the Romans enjoyed the hot springs there, but I am sure we had a more pleasant experience because of plenty of energy that was around. Here you can see a picture of the Hambach lignite coal mine taken from the International Space Station. Now, we didn't go to the space station that day, but thanks to the internet you can find all these great pictures without even getting to all those places. So this mine was started in 1978 and is planned to be closed in 2029. The area is about 17 square miles, and in the year 2021 they extracted 23 million tons of lignite, and this was enough to feed a generation capacity of 4.2 gigawatts of electricity. This is a very interesting operation. On the southern end, there are bucket wheel diggers that remove the top sands to get to the coal. And then on the northern side, they deposit whatever is dug up at the southern side. This is actually an interesting energy efficiency problem because when you make a hole that is so deep, you don't want to really move materials up and down, and they have these horizontal belt systems that transport all the material from one side of the hole to the other side. A good friend of mine who isn't a photovoltaic expert, he actually did an estimation for me that this area could now produce 6 gigawatts of photovoltaic electricity if we take the annual average. So this would actually be more efficient than digging coal with all these permanent damages in this digging operation. Over here, you can see a vista point that my son and I were able to visit. Here you can see this impressive view that my son and I enjoyed from this vista point. The hole is 411 meters deep, and the mining operation provides about 5% of Germany's electricity. The diggers look still very, very small in this photo. To get a better appreciation of the size of these bucket wheel diggers, I looked for a picture on the internet. In the active mine, they don't let you get close to this machinery. It's obviously dangerous. So here you get some idea. Now, at the mine site, for the visitors, they actually had like just a segment of one of these wheels, and you can see myself and my son there in this little circle. And so you kind of get an idea what kind of operation this is, the scale, really mind-boggling. So I have to say, vacations are great to put work into a new perspective. Me, as a chip designer, I deal a lot with nanometer size problems. And so seeing sort of this other extreme of engineering was really exciting and very impressive. I do care about the environment, and that's why I feel ESG reporting and the accounting of greenhouse gas emissions is really important for large operations. Here, as an example, you can see the 2023 ESG report of Broadcom, where I used to work many years ago. If you open this report, you find interesting numbers about the carbon emissions related to lots of different aspects of their operations. There's purchased goods and services, capital goods, lots of details. Now, the really interesting part is what they are not really reporting on. They are missing here the Scope 3 emissions from the operations of their products. Chips use quite significant amounts of power. And so you can find more detailed information from some smaller fabless semiconductor companies, and they report tens of millions of metric tons of carbon dioxide when the operation of products is included. And that part is actually significantly above 99% of their inventory. Now, you ask me what is significantly above 99%, I would call it 100%. So it's really just a fraction below 100%. So this is really the dominant factor, and we should be really focusing on this one because this is the important element. So all this accounting of insignificant details is really sort of a waste of accounting resources, or it's creating essentially a picture that says, well, we are not really responsible for much of the emissions here. To better appreciate the impact of a fabless semiconductor company, I created here a hypothetical example. The Hambach Fabless Semi Corporation reports in their fiscal 2023 ESG report that they were responsible for 25 million metric tons of carbon dioxide emissions related to the operation of their chips. Now, what does this really mean? I like to relate this now to the Hambach mine, where essentially 23 million metric tons of lignite were mined and then burned at 1.1 kilograms of carbon emissions per kilogram of lignite. And that leads us essentially to these 25 million metric tons. So here's now my new favorite carbon emissions unit. One Hambach is equivalent to 25 million metric tons of carbon dioxide. So if you work for a semiconductor company and your company reports their Scope 3 emissions for the operations of your chip, you can now essentially scale this and see how many Hambachs your company is responsible for. Now, that may give you really a better impression of how important your work is if you are working on the power optimization of integrated circuits. We may not really feel that we are moving a needle by reducing power, but there can be really a big scale impact if we can, for example, eliminate a big power plant somewhere in the world because we make better chips. I like to share some more data with you. This is an energy forecast that predicts how the total electricity use of networks, the production of ICT, consumer devices, and data centers is going to grow, especially data centers, and that includes all the AI that people now try to deploy, and networks will increase massively in their need for electricity. We can also take a look at the global fossil fuel consumption, and what worries me there is that we are still on a growing trajectory. You see a little blip of carbon emissions during the COVID crisis when people stopped to enjoy vacations outside of their homes, but overall the trend is still pointing upwards, and that is worrisome. At the same time, where this IT and data center and networking demand is increasing, we also have a growing number of electric cars, heat pumps, and crypto mining operations, as well as air conditioning. We have to remember we are in a climate emergency, and the people who are affluent enough to afford air conditioning, they will buy air conditioning. And so air conditioning takes power that will increase the amount of carbon emissions, which will increase essentially the need for air conditioning. So it's kind of like a vicious feedback circle here. even in the mainstream media, you can find now reports that say that amid explosive demand, America is running out of power. At the bottom, you see that the internet data centers are fueling drive to old power sources, coal, because there is such a sudden increase in electricity needs. We essentially are ramping up coal-fired power plants, and that's going to be really terrible for our climate. On June 27th, we visited the Energeticon museum in Alsdorf, where they present essentially at the site of a former hard coal mine, the mining equipment, but also it provides an experience with new renewable energy. At the bottom left, you can see my son Christoph as he is in front of a rack with emergency breathing devices, which can be deployed in the carbon monoxide emergency. This is after, for example, there's an explosion in a mine. These breathing devices gave the miners essentially 1 hour of time to leave the mine and find a place where the air was breathable. They also had these rather bulky headlamps because the energy efficiency of modern LEDs didn't exist. So this was all heavy, bulky stuff. You could essentially go down one floor in sort of an elevator that was resembling the basket that the miners used to travel in, and they recreated this experience of essentially traveling down to 800 meters. They had a monitor at the top, and you could kind of see how the entry above you became smaller and smaller, and then you essentially exited and were then sort of exposed to a mining environment. However, this is sort of the Disneyland version of a mining environment because there was no coal dust. So Christoph, with his white Germany soccer shirt, he could be there without getting all black. On the right-hand side, you can see a transport vehicle that could essentially be used by miners to move around underground on rails. And we learned that the miners had to sometimes commute up to 10 kilometers underground to actually get to the coal face where they could extract coal. In this area, the temperature is actually increasing by 3 degrees Celsius per 100 meters. And so mining at 800 meters essentially meant that the miners were working at temperatures above 30 Celsius. And that's quite warm. And you have to appreciate the hardship. I don't think us office workers who are designing chips have really an appreciation for that. So it's good to get exposed to some higher temperatures sometimes to really appreciate the work that other people are doing. At the Energeticon, we saw a lot of interesting information about energy. We learned that soft coal, lignite, has an energy density of 15 megajoule per kilogram. Hard coal has a higher energy density of 24 megajoules per kilogram. And then at the top here is crude oil with 44 megajoule per kilogram. But what does this actually mean? So you may remember from your physics classes that we can equate energy with a mass being lifted by a certain height, h, against gravity. And so if we use this equation here for the energy that is included in 1 kilogram of lignite, we can essentially calculate that a person of a weight of 75 kilograms can be lifted to 20.4 kilometers. Now, I weigh a little less than 75 kilograms, but if I wanted to go to 20 kilometers, I would probably have to bring some emergency breathing devices myself and a blanket so that I could survive this. The 20 kilometers for the soft coal actually already gets us to the level of the stratosphere. With the hard coal, we could be elevated to 32 kilometers, and then crude oil gets us to 60 kilometers. Think about it. When you put gasoline in your car and you put like a gallon of gasoline in there, that would get you probably to outer space if there was a more efficient way of transportation than your car. After seeing all these different mining operations, Christoph and I went to the Carolus Thermen spa in Aachen on June 28th. And this was really such a profound change of scenery. You could essentially be in this perfectly clean environment, beautiful warm water. We went to the sauna, so we survived 15 minutes at 100 degrees Celsius with very low humidity. But this was really thought-provoking because it was a contrast to all the things we had seen, the mining operations where miners were deep underground, very, very dirty. And so this was very thought-provoking to me. And that's why I'm sharing this story here. Being at the spa and thinking about all these mining operations that were done in the past, I started to think about Bitcoin mining and what value it actually produces for our highly developed society. On the right side, you can see a miner, and I think the miners had a very profound appreciation of the energy that they were providing to society. The coal provides the 24 megajoule per kilogram, and this is a critical ingredient in steel, and that is the energy foundation of our technological development extracted at great risk to their health and life. In Alsdorf, there was once an accident where 300 miners died in an explosion. So they were really risking health and life to provide this energy so that society could advance. Going back to warm water related to the spa experience, I want to talk about water heaters. There are two systems here, systems with tank versus tankless. In the system with a tank here on the left-hand side, we can use solar energy to heat water, which is being stored in the tank and then can be used at night to have a nice warm shower. Energy storage is here a critical feature of the system. On the right-hand side, you can see now a tankless water heater. So this heater essentially has cold water coming in, then there is a heat exchanger, and warm water is coming out. Now there's only warm water when we immediately burn natural gas to heat up the water. This system has essentially no energy storage. Thinking about the tankless water heater, I actually realized that it is a great engineering analogy for the Bitcoin system. So the temperature increase, delta T, is essentially the value of a Bitcoin. The fuel is FOMO, the fear of missing out. Now, you may ask yourself, what is the energy density of FOMO? I can only tell you this is a variable with a value larger or equal to 0. The important aspect of the system is there is no value tank. So it's not like a bank where you can deposit money or stuff. No, there is no value tank. And so when we think about this, we can't really expect that there will be warmer water when our turn comes up at the other side of the pipe. So this is kind of a little bit unfortunate. You may have seen the ice bucket challenge. So that is maybe some realization when we think about the Bitcoin system. So in my view, Bitcoin is really a gamble on FOMO. My friends, I'd like to talk a little bit more about the Bitcoin investment fallacy. When you check in the media, you find quite a few references that combine crypto and investing in the same sentence. And in my understanding, this should never be done because crypto is not an investment. I'm going to talk about this a little bit on the next slide. I really got very, very upset in 2022 when Fidelity Investments started to offer 401k retirement account investments into Bitcoin. This was really the most ridiculous proposal that I could imagine. There are some cautionary voices out there, but when I see here Money with Michelle, what to know before investing in cryptocurrencies, they mention investing again. I like to first give you a specific example. In 2022, I invested in 3E Biotech, which is a startup company. So here, shareholder capital is a universal resource to create a productive business. The business develops IP, it builds manufacturing facilities, it has a mission to create profitable products for a circular economy. It is possible that there are future dividends if we are successful. Let's break down investing in a particular example. Let's say a young man has an amount of money that he wants to invest so that he has some golden years when he retires. He invests the money into a productive business. Here he may buy Avago shares for $120. Then many years pass, and during those years he may receive some dividends. And then at some point in time, this is a very productive business. It may have grown to a share price of $1,200. And if the man now sells his shares, he essentially receives his return, which is quite substantial. But of course, we have to also pay capital gains taxes on this. I like to compare the capital flow of investing now to the capital flow in crypto coin speculation. So here you see a young man with some money on the left-hand side and an early coin speculator on the right side. These two parties can use the tankless crypto money transfer system to exchange their assets. Then the speculator will have to pay capital gains tax on the gains of his purchase. Then many years later, our purchaser of the cryptocurrency is maybe now approaching his golden years, and so he wants to now sell his Bitcoin, and so he goes to the crypto tankless money transfer system. And the big question is now, will there be a sucker that actually feeds the tankless system at this point in time? So this is a big question. Maybe the people in the future will be a little smarter and they will not buy the particular cryptocurrency that we purchased. There's like 10,000 coins, and I don't see why there should be any less than those. Probably there will be many more. So it's really kind of pointless to put your retirement assets into a cryptocurrency. When I look at this system, it actually looks very similar to Social Security because there is money immediately transferred from the people who are paying in to the people who are receiving the benefits. However, the people who receive Social Security benefits today, they are not really becoming rich quick. They are just getting essentially a reasonable return for the payments that they made over the years. The problem with the crypto system is essentially it's with voluntary participation, and there is no government to ensure future contributions. So which person in their right mind would actually participate in this? To me, this is just plain crazy. I think this is a good time for a timing check. Oh, you may say, oh my gosh, I just wasted 20 minutes on YouTube following a goofy engineer. Now, timing is something that I've been very interested in for a long time. I used to visit this timing workshop, the Tau workshop, that was held annually and was working on various aspects of digital circuit timing. Now, one of the groundbreaking contributions that I made in this workshop is that I created a model for a special effect where 4 times 1 is 4, where the industry timing models essentially say 4 times 1 is 1. So the industry model was just ignoring this effect. Now, unfortunately, this timing workshop ceased to be held after 2021. The last one was during COVID and online. And I'm working with a couple of good friends to try to resuscitate this workshop. And hopefully, in the future, you will receive an invitation if you like to participate in the Tau 2025 workshop. And I plan to use LinkedIn to try to essentially find a critical mass of participants for this workshop. To lighten up our presentation here, I also like to talk about a few timing trivia here. So the first trivia is that God created Earth in 6 days and rested on the seventh. The second one is that Homo sapiens appears to destroy his creation in a few hundred years. And the third one is that this presentation was hatched in 1 week out of corporate duties after incubating over my lifetime. I like to talk about how a radical shift of perspective can lead to a different appreciation of the importance of our work. So I've been working on integrated circuits at the nanometer scale, and I have focused on power efficiency. Now in our vacation, we were exposed to these giant extractive machines that provide the coal that ultimately leads to the carbon emissions that appear in the reports of fabless semiconductor companies, which raises the appreciation for the operation of circuits, how important power efficiency really is at scale. I could connect this now to the Hambach coal mine, which is so large, and I realized that all these topics are really connected. And so I created this new favorite carbon dioxide emissions unit, 1 Hambach, equivalent to 25 million metric tons of carbon emissions. And so this is now really increasing my appreciation of how important it is to work on efficient circuits. And this is now becoming a new target for my work. So now you invested a significant amount of your time. Here is a possible return on your investment. If this sentence describes you, I occasionally play the lottery and have a fractional Bitcoin, then I like to say, thank you for taxing yourself and enjoying it. I don't believe in Bitcoins or the lottery because ultimately it's just a transfer of money where taxes are being removed. So it's not an efficient value preservation or creation vehicle. I believe the system tricks us to exploit our emotional weaknesses. And it does this because there are some actors who want to create shareholder value. An example here is Fidelity Corporation that embraces Bitcoins so that they can look for the 401k pumpkins who may be the last generation in this cryptocurrency Ponzi scheme. We have discussed there is essentially no value creation in the system, and as a whole of society, we are all losing by pursuing these games. If your situation is more described by my nest egg is essentially mostly cryptocurrency, then I like to suggest to think about how did you get here? Is it fear of missing out? And if that's the case, then I think it is time to think about FOMA, the fear of missing all. You don't want to end up in a situation like this in your supposedly golden years when nobody will be interested in Bitcoin 1.0. The world will have moved on. People will understand that this is really not creating value for society. Maybe they will become illegal. Who knows? So I'm pretty confident crypto has no real future. I want to briefly talk about my corporate growth path. So I joined Broadcom in 1999 and then stayed there for a long time. And Broadcom grew a lot from like 400 employees to many thousands of employees. So it was really an interesting growth story. In 2016, I then left Broadcom and went to a rather small startup company in Irvine, Clarify, that works on coherent DSPs for fiber optical communication. Then Clarify got acquired by Inphi in December of 2016, and afterwards Inphi got acquired by Marvell in April 2021. So I have seen large companies, small companies, growing companies, acquisitions. And if I now look at my personal growth, I can see myself sort of as an interesting corporate caterpillar that grew from one experience to the next experience. And so this has been really an exciting and rewarding journey, I have to say. Like any good caterpillars, I essentially absorbed lots of energy, and that is now a resource that I can use for my future. I like to take the opportunity at this point to say farewell to my friends at Clarify, Inphi, and Marvell. It has been really an exciting journey. We have developed lots of great technology, and it has been a lot of fun. Thank you. The next station in my journey is going to be Pixida or Pixeda. I'm not so sure yet how I'm going to pronounce this. This is all just a few days old, so all under construction here. So the P essentially stands for power, and specifically rising of power efficiency. I stands for integrity. X stands for a different kind of expert, and whoever follows Elon Musk will know that Elon likes the X factor. So I hope I will also have the X factor in this picture, and this is essentially what's going to happen now. I'm essentially going to start my own startup company, and I will be working on power efficiency because I'm scared of a future where energy will ultimately kill us. As a last little thought, is it time to sell your Bitcoins while the delta T is larger than zero? And also, please share this interpretation forward if you enjoyed it or you think it's useful.